Hello, Classpad.net users. I just want to kind of explain an activity that's being shared. It's on the blog. We did a blog post about it, and then it's on our YouTube as well. This is a ready-to-use activity, kind of geared to elementary, middle school. It's about measures of central tendency and representations of data. So basically, and this is in honor of President's Day that's happening on Monday, it's a very simple data. It's all the presidents, so all 45. So you'll see that there's a table here of all the presidents, and they're listed, first President Washington, all the way down to our current president, and their ages that they were when they were inaugurated. So we're basically, is there a connection? Is there a general age? Or are most presidents a certain age? That's sort of where we're trying to go with this. So the students are given this data, this table data, and they've got some questions. So basically the idea is we're going to show them different representations of this data, starting with the table, and have them try to answer some questions based on the representation that's given to them. So, for example, the first question is, from the table, is there anything you can conclude? Or what are your observations? So hopefully students are going to, scroll through the table and look at things. And for me, let's say I'm a student, I'm looking at this, I might notice, wow, there's a lot of numbers that seem to be in the 50s. So it seems that more presidents are in their 50s. I don't have an exact number, but there's a lot of 50s compared to some of these other numbers, right? And then if we look, maybe I can just say, wow, it doesn't look like there's some 60s, but there's only one 70, so maybe that's kind of an odd. He's the oldest president. That's just a conclusion we're making. But all of this just from looking at the table. So the first thing they do is just, let's look at the table. Here's this table of data. What are some things you can tell from the table? So the next thing is, okay, can we be a little more exacting with this? So the next thing they'll do is to ask to make a dot plot of that information. So they're going to select the column that has the ages, because that's the numerical data, and they get this statistics menu that pops up, and it tells them to arrow over, and here's some choices from statistical plots, and the first thing they're asked is to make a dot plot. So when they do that, you'll notice a couple things happen, and I'm going to move this. This is Classpad.net, so I can move all of my stickies where they belong. It made a dot plot of my data, so notice it's connected. So it's saying this table now has a connected plot that represents what you chose. And so now we have a dot plot of the ages. And so the next thing they're going to do is look at this dot plot. Does that give you more information than the table gave you? And what do the dots represent? That type of thing. So they're going to be able to answer some questions. So the dot plot obviously is grouping common numbers together, data. So like if we were to look here, we've got two sets of numbers. So this looks like it's like 56 kind of high and 54. Oh no, it's not even that. 51 and 54 are kind of together. And then if I look at these dots out here that are kind of by themselves, there's not that many presidents that are old. So we only had like 3 presidents that were over 65. We only have 1 that's 70, and then we had some young presidents that were under 45. So that's impressive. So what kind of data can they get from looking at the dot plot, right? Do you get more information? And the answer hopefully is yes. And what kind of information can you make some more in-depth conclusions than you could from your table? And yes, because now our data is grouped, right? It's visually grouped, so we can make some more different conclusions from the table. The next thing they're asked to do is then, okay, so that's one representation of the data. Let's find another one. Let's go and do column B again. So let's look at the ages, but this time let's make a different plot. So now they're going to make a histogram. And so what you'll find is that as they come down, let's go back, it puts a histogram right on top of the dot plot, which is really nice because now they can say, wow, it's the same data, different visualization. How are the dots part of that histogram? So if you notice this bar right here says 11. Well, what does that mean? Well, there are 11 presidents that fall between the age of 55 and 57, it looks like, right? That's a lot. There's 7, there's 8 that fall between the ages of 48 and 51. So now they can actually get even more precise, and the histogram's giving them different information. So the third question is basically, okay, now look at your histogram. What's that telling you that maybe do you have more information? So they're just doing a comparison. Then we come on down to, All right, so you've got a histogram, a dot plot, and a table. Can you make some conclusions about the mean, the mode, the median without actually calculating it? Do your tables help you? And so the first thing we ask is to get them an estimate, trying to help them kind of make that connection between the visual representation and that numerical representation. Once they make their estimates and kind of explain where they got those estimates from, then we have them actually calculate. And the nice thing about Classpad.net is because we have defined these numbers with a variable, I guess, age, we're going to call it that way, that age can be used in other things. So when we come down here, we're going to ask them to actually calculate using the fact that we have that representation, that word. So notice what happens, because I'm using the label of that column, it actually will find the mode, the mean, and the median for me simply by typing in that column's name. It's getting all those things together. So this is a quick way to get that to these measures, right? Not the only way. You could do it another way, but again, our focus in this lesson is kind of what representation is helping you get to these conclusions. So now they've got these three measures of central tendency. Let's compare them. And then based on that, what would you say is a general age of a president when they're inaugurated? Well, obviously 55 is both the mean and the median. That might be a good number, or maybe they're going to choose the halfway between the mode. So it's because that's the most, right? So these are really explorations of what makes sense to you. How are you interpreting the data? How, can you explain your answer based on your visualizations? So that's the activity in general. There is an extension. We do ask them to go back and make a box plot. So again, it's the nice thing about Classpad.net is you can just keep using the same information over and make many different representations. So you'll notice now my graph has a box plot on it. And so they are asked to now, okay, so you've already calculated the mean, median, mode. You know what a histogram's doing. You know what a dot plot's doing. What's a box plot? And so they're going to recognize some of these numbers in here. 55, wow, that was the mean and the median. 51 was one of our modes. So what is this telling us? What is 70? What is 42? And what do these numbers say about the presidents? Do we need to include those numbers? So kind of a nice visual representation activity that really kind of helps students analyze data and think about what visual representations are really going to help them make some conclusions about data that they have. So have fun exploring. This is shared publicly in the blog. You'll see the link, the URL link that goes with this activity that you can use.